Hello guys and welcome back to our course on database management systems. So in this section, we'll be beginning with SQL and we'll be covering everything. Theory, practical, application, we'll be jumping into everything. So let's begin with a brief history on SQL. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language, right? As the name suggests, right, it is a structured language that is used for querying things. When I say query, I just mean that we are accessing some data. Okay? We are accessing data from a data store. All right. So I believe not everybody is used to SQL. Some people must have heard SQL, right? Some people must have heard SQL instead of SQL. So when I heard that, I usually thought that people are just not pronouncing it the right way. It's supposed to be SQL, but they are trying to turn SQL into a word and they call it SQL. But that is not true, right? Earlier, initially, when SQL was made, it was actually called Structured English Query Language and its name was SQL. So, Structured English Query Language, SEQUEL, right? So, why was SQL made? Why was SQL made in the first place? So, in 1970s, Dr. E.F. Cord published a paper, and that paper was a relational model of data for large shared data banks. IBM saw potential in this paper and created an experimental relational database, and this happened in 1974. That system was called System R. So there was a scientist called E.F. Cord, and he published a paper, and IBM research team picked up that paper in 1974 and created a relational experimental database. SQL was the interface for System R. So IBM created System R and they also created an interface for it, which was SQL, or in those times it was actually SQL, right? It was actually SQL in those times. So moving on, we'll be beginning with the commands and we'll be seeing how those are used and what those are used for. So moving on, we will be looking at some of the commands. So let's talk a little bit about them. What are the types of commands? So we have mainly two types of commands, right? There are more, but we won't actually be going into them. So we'll be talking about only two types of commands, right? There's DDL and there's DML. So this is data definition language, and then we have data manipulation language. So data definition language and data manipulation language are the two that we are going to look into. So what do you think data definition means? What do you think data definition means, right? It is very clear that this is a language used for data definition, but what does it mean to define data? When we say data definition, we mean the way that data is going to be stored. So let's say I am saying that I have some sort of data and this needs to be stored as an int, or this needs to be stored as binary. Those are two different things. These are both data, but the way it is stored must be defined, right? Because if I am just given 101, I do not know if this is 5 or this is 101. It will only be defined when I say that this is of int type or this is of binary type, right? So all of those kinds of things are included in data definition. So creation of a database, creation of a table, adding attributes, changing attributes name, changing attribute constraints, adding constraints, all of those are what? Data definition language. So what is data manipulation language, right? Again, similar to what the name suggests, it is a language used for data manipulation. So what do I mean by data manipulation? we have some data. Let's say I have name and age and phone number, right? I have name, age and phone number stored somewhere somehow. So let's say I have name and I have age and I have phone number. Now I want to change something, right? Let's say the name was not VA, it was BA. So I could change this using DML, right? We are manipulating the data that we have. I could change the age, I could change the phone number, I could add another row here, I could remove this row here, right? I could remove this set of data, I can add another set of data. All of those things that include manipulating data are included in what? Data manipulation language, right? Again, once more. So data definition is where we define things, where we say what is to be stored, what is to be stored, where we say how things are to be stored, right? How things are to be kept, what is the organization that we are going to be using. So we can say we are using this database, this table, this attribute of this type with this constraint, or we could say update this to change this table definition, or we could say delete this table definition or attribute definition or constraint definition, right? And in data manipulation we are dealing with actual data, right? So we can change somebody's name, we can change somebody's age, we could change somebody's phone number, we could add somebody's details, right? We could remove somebody's details. Those are all data manipulation. All right, so let's meet in the next video.